Bonus episode of the pod coming to you from a Monday afternoon. Derek texted me this morning, said, "Hey, what do you think about hopping on for a bonus episode?"
Well, that's how rare it is the Padres win a series at Dodger Stadium, Darnay. This is like a legitimately big deal.
I found it to be a very relevant idea, so I said, "Let's go for it." I'm excited, and clearly, some of you are excited as well. Got some folks in the chat already. We'll get to your comments. If you are watching on live on the NBC7 YouTube channel, appreciate you being with us. Hit the chat. We'll get to your comments, hot takes, questions. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, regardless of your platform of choice. And yeah, fun to have a good reason, Derek, to talk Padres on a Monday afternoon. I enjoy the occasional bonus or emergency pod, and I'm glad you mentioned it because this is a good occasion to do so.
Yeah, definitely more bonus than emergency. And that's we've had to do too many of the emergency. They fired their manager. Bob Melvin can't get along with AJ Preller. They're going to go to an octagon death match.
Nope.
Like this is good.
This is good. We don't need one of those. And so excited to be with you for, I don't know, next half hour or so. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, happy to be with you, talking some Padres, talking a lot of good things and a lot of good encouraging signs from the weekend after they took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers. So let's get after it. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. And yeah, what a stay at Dodger Stadium for the Padres. Never a dull moment. And every single night provided something that was a bit of a talker. And it all culminated with Jurickson Profar's bases clearing double, sending a bit of a message and winning the war of words in his preferred fashion with his bat. And so again, we're looking for good signs. We're trying to figure out, learn what we can about this team. And I think we learned some good things the last few days.
They respond. That's what we saw against the Giants, what we've seen against the Cardinals, what we saw against the Cubs. This team responds. And that it's not just a couple of them now. And as we know, I mean, Darnay, we were in that clubhouse, on opening day, and Xander Bogaerts is even saying, man, you start thinking about last year, is it going to be different? And then they come from behind. And what's great is that wasn't an isolated incident. They've been able to do it consistently where they come back, they chip away, they fight back. Even in the game that they lost on Saturday nights, they had the tying run at the plate in the 9th inning twice. Yeah. So this team is going to continue coming after you. And I think the more that they do that, the more that they show you that they not only are going to try and come after you, but they can be successful in that just breeds belief in the clubhouse. And when you have belief in the clubhouse, a lot of good things can happen. Very encouraged by what we saw this weekend.
Yeah, no question. And that was obviously missing with last year's team. They'd get down a couple runs and you're like, all right, this is over. You know what I mean? They never really showed you, or at least never consistently showed you kind of the will to claw back in situations like that. There just wasn't the same sort of fight that, and again, it is early, it is a small sample size. So we only have what we've seen to really base all of this on. And so hopefully this is a narrative that has shown itself early on. And hopefully that ends up being an attribute of this team throughout. Mike Schill talked about what was it? Opening day being an identity game, or was it one of the Korea series? It was opening day, right?
Opening day, yeah.
Yeah, opening day being an identity game. And there have been more of those since then, certainly Monday against the Cubs, Friday against the Dodgers, even Sunday against the Dodgers. And so we're seeing that on a more regular basis. And, I wonder just how much the experience from Monday coming back from down 8-0, nearly wiping it away in 1 inning, and then Tatis doing what he does. Just 4 nights later, they're down 7-3 at Dodger Stadium. It's not an 8-run deficit. It's a 4-run deficit, but against a tough team in a tough environment. And they do it again, and they scored 5 unanswered Friday, 5 unanswered Sunday, different situations, different deficits, but they did the same thing. They got it going. They had the big hits. They shut it down on the other end and came away with a win.
And the way they've been doing this, man, it's awesome because it'll be when they get a spark, Friday night, Jake Cronenworth home run. Okay. There's a little spark, and they would do that in the past, but it'd be that, okay, that one guy does something and the rest of the lineup continues to stay in slumber. But you can see something happening up and down the lineup. You can see guys starting to take better at bats. You can see the bottom third of the lineup has been tremendous, as we've talked about on this very podcast, turning the lineup over. Even when Jackson Merrill hit leadoff for that one game when Xander Bogaerts mercifully had a day off, he even had the base hit to move the runner to third base before Tatis could double him home. Like they're extending at bats. You can just you can see and feel it as it's going throughout the game. As Mike Schultz said, better as the game goes on, better as the season goes on. That's what we're seeing from this club. They're better late in games than early in games. And how many times have you heard it? What's not important is how you start. What's important is how you finish. And that's really what we're seeing from this club right now is truly been a team that is not going to, especially from the Dodgers, man. If it's 7-3 against the Dodgers, that game's over pretty much any year prior to this.
At Dodger Stadium.
They're in their heads, right? The Dodgers have that whammy on the Padres for whatever reason. So to come back twice in a 3-game set on the road is something we really have not seen in a very, very long time. I mean, a very, very long time. In fact, there's only going to be one more series at Dodger Stadium this year. So they can win the season series at Dodger Stadium. The last time the Padres had a winning record for a whole year in Chavez Ravine was 2010. That was also the last time the Padres won 90 games in a year and finished ahead of the Dodgers in the standings. So this is all trending in a very nice direction right now.
1-0 in extra inning games. They're on the board. It took until late September for them to get their first last year, 2-12. Started 0-12, and 3-2 in 1-1 games. They already have a third of their total of 1-run wins from a year ago. That was 9-23, and it would have taken a small fraction of those to flip for the Padres to be a playoff team based on the way they turned things on in September. And so it's never really too early to say, okay, what benefit could that comeback over the Cubs be? What benefit could that comeback over the Dodgers be? What benefit could that, wasn't as dramatic of a comeback, but tying it up, having the big hit and shutting things down defensively and with the bullpen. We saw how agonizingly close they were in games, and then once the season went on with the playoff race. And so all these are very, very important and could mean something come September. And the fact that they're not going to have to, search for kind of their ability or figure out their ability to win these games, to come through in these situations, to have that early evidence and now confidence going forward, I think is significant.
Shelby, go ahead and talk about what everybody wants to talk about, because Maria here said it. Yep. How about Profar? His response to Will Smith was perfect. It was. I do have to say this. I was a little bit peeved at Jurickson Profar on Saturday night, because anybody in baseball will tell you if a guy's got a perfect game in the 6th inning, he's probably not throwing at you. So when he got a little bit mouthy, I was like, dude, don't. Oh, Pro, I love you, but stop. He's not trying to hit you. And it's not like Gavin Stone and him have a history together. This doesn't go back 3 or 4 years of him, constantly pounding him inside, and that will get on a guy's nerves because you want to eventually defend yourself. But then when Will Smith said one of the dumbest things I've ever heard a catcher say, catchers are supposed to be the smart ones in the clubhouse. That was one of the stupidest comments I've ever heard a big league ball player say, because that just pokes the proverbial bear. You go, oh, really? Irrelevant, huh? Okay, because you can call a guy mouthy, you can call a guy annoying, you can call him obnoxious. You start saying that somebody doesn't matter in the scheme of a baseball club, that's going to piss somebody off. And that's exactly what happened with Jurickson Profar. And the dude who has a career 800 OPS playing for the Padres went and made him pay for it. And it was so fun and happy. And it just made me smile seeing him be able to come back and do that. So yeah, well, I still wasn't happy with Pro doing the whole, why are you throwing inside on me? He's not throwing at you. It's a perfect game thing. He more than made up for that when he lined that double, missed a grand slam by this much.
Yeah,
maybe. That was fantastic. And you knew the second that happened, that game was over.
Well, I don't know if you caught Profar's in-game interview. He was asked about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that was kind of
Oh
a
yeah.
misunderstanding on my part. I knew he, I realize now he wasn't trying to throw at me."
I know, but you still have to have some sort of situational awareness. I
But
mean,
I
it's
will
like,
say this:
ugh.
if a guy is cruising along, and look, Profar wasn't going to charge the mound. He took a kind of couple steps forward. You know, stared him down, let him know that he didn't appreciate it. He wasn't going to charge the mound or anything like that. He's just letting him know, like, I don't like that. I'm not cool with that. Hey, if a guy's coasting along and it's a young pitcher who hasn't been, I would think, in situations like this very often, you have a chance to maybe rattle him, get in his head a little bit. I don't hate it from like a mind games standpoint
I can see that.
because he's coasting, and I'd rather do that than a guy try and lay down a bunt and just get a cheap one across.
Oh, you mean
Um,
Ben Davis it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't mind a little bit of the gamesmanship from that standpoint. And obviously, if and maybe Profar's just so locked in that he didn't even realize the guy had a perfect game going. Maybe he's just like, he's pitching really well. We haven't done anything, blah, 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 blah. But he, maybe didn't even kind of realize it in that moment. I don't know. But obviously Will Smith stepping to him, like, he's defending this guy or whatever. um, it is a little bit silly that the bench is cleared, but that's baseball. It didn't turn into
Yeah,
anything beyond that.
that
Whatever.
was where I was going. God, okay, come on, really?
We probably don't
Everybody
need
go
to.
back. You're making this already rain delayed game go even longer now. Get back in the bullpen.
But we can't really say that when we're talking about, hey, this team has finally showed some fight, because there were instances last year. I want to say a Mariners game. There was also when Soto got thrown at after the homer. There are a couple situations where maybe you wish the Padres had like jumped over the rail and kind of said, hey, we're ready if you want to go there. And you didn't necessarily see that from last year's team. And so maybe just like the willingness to go to bat, even if it is a little bit cheesy, those situations like that, says something good about this team and kind of the intestinal fortitude, the heart, kind of the fight, and all that stuff. And credit to Profar. Like, he didn't want to get into the back and forth, the war of words, uh, but he did want to settle it in a more meaningful fashion, and he did do just that. And so
Well, he went Teddy Roosevelt on him. He spoke softly and carried his big stick.
He did. And so that was cool to see. That was cool to hear from Profar. I mean, he is such an interesting guy, because we talk about the good vibes, we talk about the big smile, that sort of thing. It's not the first time he's gotten into it with the Dodgers. Remember, he had the little dust up with Clayton Kershaw,
Hmm.
where I went back and watched it just out of curiosity, because the whole incident triggered my memory, where Kershaw accused him of taking a BS swing because he was kind of reaching for a pitch and got I don't know, it was probably Will Smith's glove, got the catcher in interference and got on base. And I think that might have been the end of Kershaw's day. If I have that right, I might be botching some of the details of the story, but Kershaw was not happy about it. And we've seen that from Profar numerous instances where you know, he'll get into it a little bit. He's not afraid
Hmm.
of, he's not going to duck some smoke, but um it's that balance of just like this fun-loving guy, but like he'll go to war for his guys, if given the opportunity, and that's a good guy to have on your side.
Well, we talked about that a lot last year. I believe we even talked about it with Kyle Glazer on this very podcast. Who's the enforcer on this team? Who is the guy who's going to go out there and say, we're not standing for this anymore? You're going to take a fastball up above your shoulders. You're going to, you're going to have somebody come in hard with a slide, the Reese Hoskins type thing. Like who is that player? And the Padres didn't have one last year. They did not have that guy. It was, for whatever reason, the mentality was not around. This year, you can kind of see that. You can see that a little bit with Profar. You're right. He will come in. He will defend himself. He has no problem telling people how he feels about things when he doesn't like them. And the other kid, man, the more and more I'm around Jackson Merrill, the more and more he reminds me he should have been on the 1986 Mets. He's got that like Lenny Dykstra, Charlie Blackmon, I will stab you in the back with my cleat if I have to type of mentality. And I think that might be kind of bubbling over a little bit in that clubhouse. Like dudes who even when Manny Machado hit the home run on Friday night, before he's even out of the batter's box, turning and barking at the Dodger dugout.
Yeah.
Like and we know Manny will chirp, but that was early
Yes.
chirping from Manny Machado. It was like, they think they're getting a little bit more swagger. And I'm digging that. I'm digging that a lot. Just kind of seeing more of this. Like, yeah, we're a big personality clubhouse, but we're also going to, you know what? We'll stick it to you. You want to go toe to toe? We'll go Kimbo slice with you. You know, I like seeing a little bit of that come out, because they're not going to get taken advantage of this year the way that I really believe multiple times last year they were taken advantage of.
Yeah, and teams could kind of push them around a little bit without much repercussion, and that's not the case with this year's team. And it's good to see that with the Dodgers, and them to not back off a little bit, to not be afraid to kind of start things up a little bit. And Machado is a good example of that, and Profar obviously finishing things. And Will Smith with the whole kind of fake tough guy acts, like you don't have to do that.
Will Smith has a very punchable face. He really does. Like, you can't get mad at Jurickson in that regard, because you just look at Will Smith, you're like, I either want to punch you or kiss you. I don't know which one it is. Probably punch you.
Yeah, and somebody on Twitter, and I'd forgotten about this, posted the clip from the WBC. Do you remember this, when Randy Arozarena stepped up to bat? It was probably in the beginning of the Mexico-US game, and he, fist pump for the ump, and then went to give a fist pump to Will Smith. Yep. And Will Smith just looked at him. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, come on, man. You're not that guy. You're not that guy. Nobody's
Jason
worried about you.
That guy. You're Will Smith.
Yeah. You're not tough. You're not intimidating anybody. You're a good ball player. We'll give you that. You play on a really, really good team, but you're not that guy. And you don't need to be that enforcer. You don't need to be that personality. And you tried it this weekend, and it blew up in your face. And you just looked and sounded kind of silly. So, I'm reminded of was it Kevin Durant with Chris Bosh, like these fake tough guys. Like, that's not who you are. No. So you don't need to try and act like that's the case.
Plus, the World Baseball Classic, I mean, you're out there celebrating the game of baseball. You don't need to cause an international incident.
Yeah, come on, dude. You're all fellow big leaguers. Some of you guys are on the same team. Like, let's not get carried away. Lauren, we are not condoning violence on this podcast. It's his outfit that makes him especially punchable, given how things go with Dodgers Padres games and what happens in the stands. Okay, let's not condone any of that behavior, because we know that tends to happen on its own as it is, which is unfortunate. But what an awesome turn of events. And this is what we love about sports. You have these poetic moments where you have a little bit of a dust up, you have some barbs traded, and it all leads up to bases loaded. What was it? 6th or 7th inning, and Jurickson Profar at the plate and a chance to settle the score. And he did that in incredible fashion. That was awesome to see.
And the bullpen made a stand, which is the bullpen has shown flashes of being really good and show flashes of being incredibly combustible. It's a bit of a caustic start to the year for the relief corps. Two guys now I know I basically completely trust are Robert Suarez and Yuki Matsui. Suarez, man, he looks like they gave him that closer contract before last year, even though he was the 8th inning guy, because they probably knew they were going to be losing Hader. He looks like a bargain right now. And thank God he's able to go out there and get you. He's got 2 4-out saves and a 5-out save, and only 2 3-out saves. He's the anti-Hader. It's awesome to see him go out with just throwing smoke, man. I mean, he is throwing the ball incredibly hard, and it looks almost effortless. And then you got Yuki Matsui out there. He had one outing, he got 5 outs on 7 pitches. The next outing, he goes out and gets 3 outs on 4 pitches. He's been so incredibly efficient. It's really fun to watch that dude pitch. I mean, on Sunday night, he had to use a whopping 15 pitches to get through his inning. I mean, that's like a lot for him. Yeah, like average, but it was almost like inefficient for him. He has been tremendous. So it's those 2 dudes have really locked down the back end of the bullpen. And then Cosgrove may be having some troubles. I'm not sure what that's all about. De Los Santos, I think for the most part, has been really good. I think they probably still miss Steven Wilson a little more than really anybody realized they might be missing Steven Wilson, because he was so good in that 6th, 7th inning kind of swing area. They got to find the dude who's going to be doing that. Johnny Brito's looked a lot better after a bit of a shaky start. Maybe he fills that role. But if you can just figure out how to get the ball from the starter to Suarez or Matsui or both, that's really been the only major problem I've seen with this pitching staff so far.
And that kind of, I was just looking at Yuki Matsui's Savant page. His splitter, 0.71 batting average.
We knew it was going to be good. I'm not sure it's going to stay that good the whole year.
Yeah, and 143, 143 slug. It's been really, really good, and just game by game, and you kind of shouted him out on our last pod, but really, where are we at here? Yeah, the last 5. Oh no, I'm looking in the wrong place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, last 5 starts. Hasn't given up a runs, given up a couple hits. As you mentioned, super, super efficient along the way. Whip is low and getting lower. ERA now like 0.93. I mean, he's been awesome after like an appearance or two where you're like, okay, there might be some kind of acclimation period. It looks like he's here based on what
Yeah,
we've seen the last week.
he's been solid. He's been
Uh,
really, really solid. I like what I'm seeing out of the stout lefty.
and Sunday and Friday, no runs allowed by the bullpen, covered
Mhm.
4 innings in each case after Michael King, and Schilt shouted out King for kind of gutting it out for a rough start, getting him through 5 and kind of
Well,
setting up the
it
bullpen.
was 6 innings on Friday. They had to take that one to the 11th.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 6 innings. Good call. So even more taxing. Tom Cosgrove like gives up the 3 runs on Saturday. It's not what you expect from Tom Cosgrove. He's got a 12.86 ERA, so the season hasn't started the way that you would like. And I think we all expected him to be kind of a possible leverage type arm for them. And you expect that to come around. But yeah, covered a bunch of innings Friday, covering a bunch of innings on Sunday, giving up no damage. And it's not like, here's the other thing about this series. I'm sure there's been a number of times on this podcast where we've said something along the lines of, you have to play perfect to beat the Dodgers. Padres did not play perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Bullpen was really good, got some big hits, had the power on Friday, all good things. Walked a ton of times, 32 walks over 3 games, 14 of them on Sunday. So they're getting on base, but they left a lot of guys on base. There was a ton of meat left on that bone. Manny talked about it after the game. Like, you got to be better than that to beat this team. They got away with it in this case, but you look at Michael King, not a start. He's probably going to look back on fondly, and Darvish, like really kind of going through it right now. Matt Waldron was good, but then Tom Cosgrove. But like, starting pitching wasn't as good as it could be, and offensively, ton of missed opportunities, and they still came away with 2 out of 3 at Dodger Stadium. I mean, you got to feel good about that.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's a really good ball club up there. They really are. So to be able to do that when you don't play perfectly and still find ways to do it, because they didn't just rely on their all-star talent. That's what we saw too much of last year. Yeah, we'll do it because we're not, somebody's going to hit a 2-run bomb, whatever. We'll just have to wait for it. They're not waiting for that to materialize. They're going out and trying to make it happen, which I think is a huge difference in the approach of this team. And I'm incredibly, again, encouraged by that. I was talking to some of the folks downstairs in our digital team about like what's the proper emotional response from this taking 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, because you got a few different ways you can go. You can either
There's a Dodger fan down there. Were you talking to the Dodger fan down there?
One, and then a few of the other Padres. We had a nice sampling, a cross section of how we should all be looking at this. The Dodger fan was like, "I'm mad." I'm like, yeah, welcome to how we felt for the last 50 years. So yeah, take a little taste of your own medicine there, pal.
Mm-hmm.
The ways you can really look at it were, okay, the World Series Express has left the station. We're finally over the hump, and get all hyped up about it. Or it's a 3-game series in LA in the middle of April. It means absolutely nothing. This means nothing. We're still going to be well behind the Dodgers. So just don't even talk to me about this. Or you can have that kind of cautious optimism, like, this is a really good sign. I think we can probably move ahead with this and just keep on moving forward because we're building something here. Or you cannot even look at it and say, I am not getting excited. I've had my heart ripped out too many times. I'm sick of this toxic relationship. Don't get my hopes up and then just drop me on my head again. I think I'm probably on number 3, where it's like, what? I like it. We haven't seen this before. Let's keep building. Let's keep moving forward. Darnay, where do you find yourself on that 4-part emotional spectrum?
I think kind of towards the end, I think I think that the struggle is to not look at the big picture so much And what does every single day mean as far as this team's aspirations for winning a World Series? You
Mhm.
know, and I think just having kind of a boring day-to-day approach, Lauren chimes in, cautious optimism. Padres have shown way more fight in 2+ weeks than all of last year. I positioned all my negative thoughts or postponed all my negative thoughts for the next 3 weeks.
That's a long
Yeah,
time, Lauren.
that is a
I'm
long
impressed.
time.
Well, good on
That's
you.
that's a commitment. But
Until they go lose the first two in Colorado, then it's all right back.
I think just the fact that, like, you know, there is what we see on the box score, right? There is like hits, runs, homers, that sort of thing, uh, runners in scoring position, all that stuff that we tend to kind of look at. But there's also like that stuff comes and goes to a degree. But I do think there's also the intangibles, and like the intangibles should carry forward, right? And
Mhm.
they're not always going to have the like. They win the game Monday against the Cubs and they lose 5-1 the next day. There was no carryover that next day, but the intangibles did seem to mean something once they got to the weekend at Dodger Stadium. And so I think that in and of itself is a good sign for this team. Like, Jurickson Profar is not always going to have a 900 plus OPS. That's fine. Jake Cronenworth, Jackson Merrill, like their numbers are going to dip, but they're going to be in these situations again. Are they just as confident as Jackson Merrill always seems to be? And you know, that obviously allowed him to do what he did in the 11th inning at Dodger Stadium to win that game as a 20-year-old, which is incredible. So I think those are reasons to be optimistic about this team. And then you just got to kind of take the results as they come, unless all of a sudden 2 weeks go by and they've dropped, you know, 10 of 12, you know. But I think just trying not to get too high and too low on the day to day and taking this Dodger series and say, hey, really exciting, really promising, on to the next. Okay. That doesn't do anything for us against Milwaukee, just like Monday's, you know, 9 straight runs to beat the Cubs didn't mean anything for Tuesday's game. And Manny kind of referenced that after the game last night in his interview with reporters. Marty Caswell, our friend from
Mhm.
SC Sports 760, posted that, just him talking about like just kind of putting everything aside and just showing up and playing hard and then just like taking the results as they come. And that was probably, you know, I don't know, they probably illuminated on that a little bit as the season went on last year, but I think that that seemed to be kind of a struggle, maybe a hidden struggle with the team last year, is just like the pressure was a lot. They weren't the team they expected to be out of the gates. And then the pressure builds and builds and builds, and you worry about what it means going forward for this season. And then the even bigger picture questions with your manager and general manager and star players. It just got to be a lot. Whereas this team seems a little bit more content to just kind of attack each day as it comes.
Yeah, it was very much we got to get our record up. We got to get our record back. What is going on? What is happening? This is no bueno. And then you don't realize that if you don't win a game, you can't win 10. You know, a streak has to start with one game. So there was so much focus on what's our record, and then not, well, just win a game. You don't feel like Jim Mora here. We just got to figure out a way to win a game. And
Yeah.
then once you figure out a way to win a game, then you can go on a streak, because you can win the next one. You can do the next day. You can do it the next day. So I think this year they're much more on the process, day by day, not just how do we get to 90 wins. You know,
Yeah.
that's we got to, we have to have a certain record to justify all the hype that we had in the offseason. Just go out and win, play winning baseball every day. And by the end, you look up and your record will be what it is, which is exactly what you want it to be. I had a few people saying, can we compete in the division now? And the answer is still no. No, because over 162 games, the Dodgers have too much talent. Over 162 games, the Dodgers are going to have a better record than the Padres. They are going to win the West. There's nothing that's going to stop that. What it showed us and what it proved again, and we saw in 2022, is you could beat them over 7. And that's what you have to be really focused on, is don't worry about winning the division. Worry about everybody else and getting in the wild card. Because once you get the wild card, then you can get in and make hay. We saw it 2 years ago. That's the only way to beat a team like the Dodgers. You can't beat them over that long of a stretch. You got to beat them in a short stint, and that's entirely possible. And we saw it again this weekend. And that's really what I'm encouraged about.
Yeah, and it's not like the D-backs and the Giants are lighting it up either. I think that was kind of the fear. D-backs, start hot after a World Series appearance. Giants, with some big additions. You just got to get to the postseason. At the end of the day, the division kind of is what it is, and hopefully they surprise you. But I don't think you can put too much on that. You said a little bit earlier, last year's team was waiting for the stars. Um, what's funny is, you could make a case that their best three offensive players, especially before the weekend, were Jackson Merrill, I'd say four, Jake Cronenworth, Luis Campusano, Jackson Merrill, Jurickson Profar. No Manny. Tatis was right there. He was close. He's got
Toddy's
the
right
home run
there. Yeah.
total. You know what I mean? So depending on what you're
Mhm.
looking at, Tatis is there. Manny wasn't there, but Manny now has an 8-game hitting streak.
Mhm.
He's got a 917 OPS, 333 average during that stretch,
Mhm.
and a couple homers. And so Manny seems to be coming alive. I had people saying, why isn't Manny on the IL? I'm like, you don't need to put Manny on the injured list. And also, who's going to get his at bats? We're already worried about who's going to be the DH once he goes to third base. Like, it's not an issue of him not being able to. He already had a homer or two at this point, and so it's nice to see Manny looking Manny-ish as he did at Dodger Stadium, and hopefully that continues. Yeah, nice to get a little bit more of that from Xander Bogaerts. Again, he's had his moments. We've seen power here or there, which is great. But there's been a few games where I look at like the top third, middle third, bottom third. I'm like, I'm kind of more excited to see the bottom third than I am the
Yeah.
top third at boys. Obviously, Tatis is up there, which is great. But when you have Campy, when you have Merrill, like it's exciting to see those guys get at bats. Profar there kind of fitting, fifth or sixth generally. It's been exciting to see them get into it, and often those have been the guys that have been the most consistent.
And you've gotten exactly nothing from Xander Bogaerts yet. And you got to figure he's going to do something at some point. I'm wondering when you have to eventually take him out of the leadoff spot, because he's even if you're turning the lineup over, which Jackson Merrill's done a fantastic job of doing, you're still not getting. How many times has Tatis led off an inning this year because Xander is making an out, the last out of the inning right before him?
Yeah.
It's been more than I'd care to see. So, I mean, you got to figure a guy that talented, eventually something's going to happen for him. I would rather have Manny Machado with literally one arm, cut off the other one completely, literally one arm, than most other guys trying to DH for that team. He
Yeah.
leave him there. He's going to be okay at some. He's going to give you enough, even at 80%. He's still better than most dudes at 100%. Unless you want to bring up Nathan Martorella, who's been raking at Double-A. Let him have a few at bats in the DH spot. He's a left-handed bat too. We could use a couple of those. Whatever.
Well, did you see the guy that got picked up on a minor league contract today?
Today, no, who?
It wasn't Tommy Pham, because he's apparently going to the Chicago White Sox. Donovan Solano,
Interesting.
infielder, formerly, I won't say most recently, but probably
From
remember
you know
him
him from the
well with the
Giants. Yeah.
Giants. Yeah. Reds 22, Twins 23. Last year a 111 OPS plus, a 760 OPS, handful of homers. So had a pretty solid year last year. He's 36 years old, second, first, and third. And I think for a lot of people, the gut reaction is, Tyler Wade, your days might be numbered.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep.
He's had moments, but defensively, he certainly hasn't been great. He's been capable, but he hasn't been great. I think you're starting to see what Tyler Wade is he's limited. He's a bench guy. He's a guy you can bring in to get some professional at bats, but you can't rely on him as an everyday starting third baseman. Like we said on this very podcast, he should be a platoon with Eggy Rosario, which is really what it's kind of turned into now.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Oh, you're right there, bud.
That peanut butter I had earlier is coming back to get me.
Take your time. Take your time. We got nowhere to be.
Oh, wow. That was nice. Sorry, everybody. No, they need to find an everyday third base solution, because Manny's obviously not going to be there, maybe defensively, for the entire time. So finding, another veteran guy to come in, that cool. Maybe you can find somebody on the farm. Yeah, Paulie maybe not be the guy later on, but Wade is a guy who should not be the everyday third baseman. He should be a utility guy you get professional at bats in later in games. He's not an everyday starting type of player.
Yeah. And Solano last year, a 766 OPS against righties and a 746 OPS against lefties. So he hit everybody.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Over how many at bats was that?
It wasn't 297, 153. So enough. It's not exactly an even split, but it's not super dramatic either. So
why did he stay unsigned so long, and why is it only a minor league deal?
Well, you could say the same thing about Tommy Pham. I think Tommy Pham got a minor league deal.
Well, we know why Tommy Pham's an a-hole. So
but
that's
you could say Brandon Belt. I mean, that's kind of been the story of the whole off season now into the season, where you got solid, productive professional ball players that are out in the open market. I don't know what the situation was with Donovan Solano, but I like the idea of a guy like that, being in that role, rather than having to rely so heavily on Tyler Wade. Hopefully this has nothing to do with any sort of Xander Bogart situation. Solano has played primarily second, secondarily first, and third throughout his career, third most. So, but he's got experience there, and every year he's gotten some reps in third base, at least recently. And so that seems to be the direction I think that they would take, or the reasoning behind it is, Tyler Wade, scrappy, energetic, good attitude. I think kind of fits the attitude of this team, but offensively, though he did drive in a run the other night, didn't he? On Saturday. Yes. Just not giving you what you need to be kind of a contending ball club.
Well, my guess is, just kind of reading about Solano a little bit, is he seems like the guy who is teams want to get younger, so they go with some of their younger prospects because they're cheaper. And Solano's a 36-year-old who's got a lot of big league playing time, so you can't sign him. You can't just give him $740,000 unless you do get him on a minor league deal. So that seems to me like just one of those, hey, teams are trying to save money, and he kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see when he arrives and how soon he's inserted into a lineup, and kind of what his role ends up being. So a development there. We'll see what comes of that. I'm trying to think before we go. Brewers coming up a little over an hour. Series opener against Milwaukee, third NL Central opponent of the young season. Seen a bunch of them. Milwaukee just took 2 or 3 from Baltimore. They've got like a 10-4 record, so they're off to a good start.
The curse of Pat Murphy.
The curse of Pat Murphy. That's right. Then a day off Thursday, and then Toronto. Programming note: Thursday we'll have Rob Friedman, aka Pitching Ninja, scheduled to join us.
He's fun.
Yeah, he's awesome. We had him on once a couple years back. I've been wanting to get him back on. Finally reached out to him a month or so ago, and we were able to get Thursday on the book. So I'm super, super excited about that. So plan on going live. So hope you can hang out with us Thursday at 1:00. So that'll be a really fun one. Well, there's a couple more comments to get to. Charlie, one of the first in the chat. It's fitting that episode 305 has a thumbnail of Manny Machado, Miami guy. We sure Charlie isn't Eric Hosmer in the chat, dropping in with some love for the 305?
Where is that? Okay, Charlie, get Charlie on the board. There we go. Yep. Well, you know what? Hey, Manny's swinging the bat well. He hates the Dodgers. He had 2 runs over the series. Absolutely put Manny in it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a little bit fitting, and we do choose those thumbnails. There is a little bit of thought that goes into them most of the time. We're not usually going to tell you that, because usually we don't like to admit that we think or are capable of such. But we do every now and then put that. And thank you, by the way, for noticing the details, because that is awfully fun when people kind of pick up on those little things and almost go unspoken.
Charlie's got an eye for the details. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Did you hear what Manny said about Pro? I just kind of, buttoning up that conversation. He had a funny response, just like, I got to look up the definition of irrelevant, because he's been really relevant to us. And he said on multiple instances, because he was asked again about it a little bit later, said like he's got 10 years in the show. Like how many guys have 10 years in the bigs? Like you got to put some respect on that guy's name. And like I feel like some of these guys are losing sight of that. And so again, back to the conversation of fight and team unity and all those things. These little kind of glimpses into the makeup of and the attitude of this team. And I thought some of those responses that we heard were they reflected well.
Oh, that was awesome. And when you win, it makes it a little bit easier to poke fun back,
Mm-hmm.
So look at what Will Smith, if he was asked again after the game yesterday.
I didn't see anything. I would imagine somebody put a microphone in front of him after the game. I also feel like that's something that would have made the rounds if he said anything of any sort of substance.
I see nothing.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe Will learned his lesson. He got out above his skis, so to speak, a little bit on Saturday, and got it handed back to him, and maybe
somebody would have asked him that though. And then my guess is he ducked the media because he's a punk.
That might have been the case. He took a nice long shower.
In the shower. By the way, the only other thing, since we're throwing shade at everyone today, is that what the kids still say? We're ripping on everybody today. Have you seen Blake Snell's first 2 starts for the Giants?
Yes, I have. Look. We know Blake's track record this time of year. I almost tweeted this, but I was like, I'm not going to get into it yet.
Get into it because it's fun.
We know his track record this time of year, so that is what it is. So I don't want to put this on the whole, Boris late signing situation. I'm going to give it like a month or so. And if this is still the case and he's not stringing together decent starts, I'm going to put some of this. Now, again, what we don't know is Boris, I'm sure, has these conversations with his clients. What are your priorities? Where do you want to go? Do you just want to get as much money as possible? Yes. And maybe Blake said, whatever you want to do, I want to get paid. So if it takes some time, I'm fine with that. So if that's the case, that's on both of them. But I've said this on this podcast before. I don't know that them going about it the way that they did Blake any favors, because we know it takes him some time to acclimate and kind of get rolling. And so as soon as it dragged on as long as it did, and then he signed like the week before the season, like, you can see this coming. And I don't like it for Blake because I'm a Blake apologist. I'm a Blake fan. I enjoyed covering him. I enjoyed watching him more than Derek did. And so it sucks, but you had to know that this was coming, given he likes to kind of get settled in and feel comfortable. And it's hard to do that when you sign with the team like a week before your first game.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I haven't looked this up. He has made 2 starts. Again, by the way, against Washington and Tampa Bay.
CJ Abrams just mashing.
He has gone in those 2 starts total, 7 innings with, 4 walks.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad for him. He's throwing 150 pitches over 7 innings. It has a 12.86 ERA.
20 plus, yeah.
How do you throw 150 pitches over 7 innings?
Well, he had one, and there was a Giants beat writer that commented on it. Like, that was like a 43 pitch inning from Blake Snell. Yeah. It was painful to see somebody that good not be able to throw strikes. And
welcome to the Blake Snell experience, my friend. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Give him a couple years and he'll win you a Cy Young and everything will be fine.
In his walk year. Yes, exactly.
Well, this year could be his walk year. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
he's got that safety net though. So he's not going to be fully motivated. When he has to be fully motivated. Remember the 2 times that he won the Cy Young Award where A, was going into arbitration, so a big payday was coming, and B, he was about to be a free agent. And it's like not even this. It's like he turns into Sandy Koufax when there's money on the line.
You're right. Then it is a player option. You're right.
Yeah, it's like he can go ahead and say, I'm probably not going to sign for any more than that. I'll take my option for next year. He's $30
million.
He's not fully. It's not a team option where they're like, yeah, if you don't give us what we want, you're out of here. He's got that little 1 year pillow to land on.
It's a heck of a pillow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. I would take that pillow every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I've never seen a pillow like that.
Yeah, I was on a show with some Sirius XM guys over the weekend, and they're asking, why did the Padres get rid of Blake Snell and bring in Dylan Cease? I'm like, have you seen Blake Snell pitch? Yes, Cease's walk numbers, as we've talked about on this podcast, Cease's walk, and he showed it again. He will just, for some reason, completely lose command and throw 4 straight balls nowhere near the strike zone, and then he's right back on at the next pitcher. Whereas Snell is like 0-2, nibble, 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 foul ball, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball, walk. It's like a 9-pitch walk when he was up 0-2. And Cease works much deeper into games with similar pitch counts. So they're not the same pitcher. I
don't know if he works much deeper into games.
It's by average, he does. That start throughout the year, Snell will go 5, 5, 5, 5. Cease is getting into the 7th inning a lot, and he's ever thrown more than 102 pitches in an outing. He's thrown multiple more innings during the time they've both been in the league. Cease also, like, he's $8 million.
Well, yeah, I mean, this wasn't just like a Snell. This wasn't just a Snell for Cease swap. They couldn't sign Snell, and they were able to make a deal for Cease.
Right.
So,
and I'm like, do you guys really not pay attention to this stuff nationally this much? Do we have to explain something on a level like that? Like, it's fairly obvious why they did this.
Yeah. I mean, and you could throw the Juan Soto situation. Why did they get rid of Juan Soto? They not like him? I thought he was good last year. Well, it's not quite that simple. It's a little more complicated than that.
Let me see. They got rid of his $31 million, $31 or $32 million in arbitration. And they brought in, for $1.7 million, Jurickson Profar and Jackson Merrill.
And got a starting pitcher, and got another guy that should be a starting pitcher, and got.
I'm not talking just about the outfield. Yeah, that didn't even count what they were able to then get. They then got Michael King, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, and by proxy, Dylan Cease.
And they, maybe they attitude. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Maybe not having Juan Soto in the clubhouse isn't the worst thing in the world.
Well, like we said, man, he's not good in the clubhouse for this. He's perfect for New York. They're very corporate. They're very just go about your day, go about your business. I don't care about camaraderie, whatever. San Diego is much more freewheeling, fun-loving clubhouse. He didn't fit here. It was kind of like poisoning the waters around guys because guys didn't think they could be themselves around the guy. He's not. Fonso's not a bad guy by any stretch of the imagination. He's just not good for a clubhouse that has fun.
It's also early in New York, so, we'll see what happens. But, you just hear kind of little whispers from people like, nope, I don't know if anybody's really like done real concrete reporting on it. Cause you have to have the right amount of sources. You got to have enough to go on.
You gotta have enough anonymous sources, right?
I feel like there's been a few whispers of people like hinting at like there was some stuff last year that was an issue, but we just can't really kind of go with it just yet. And so it's interesting. And so kind of hearing people kind of make passing mention, even like I think Bernie, when he was on with us live, kind of said something like, we just, wasn't enough to go on, but reason to believe that maybe it wasn't a great fit and a great atmosphere. And now seeing this team, come out of the gates the way that they have, and the unity and all these things that we just spent the last 48 minutes talking about, maybe it's not a total coincidence. I don't know.
Yeah. To which I said, when Bernie said that, when we were live at OG's in Mission Valley, I was right then when I said that he was not good in the clubhouse. And Bernie said, yeah, absolutely, you were right. I'm like, okay, just wanted to leave that right there.
That's right. Kyle chiming in. There was that Athletic piece that said he knew he was gone and didn't really care as much about the team.
There you go.
Wearing headphones during parts of meetings and, that sort of thing. So, maybe that whole divorce worked out all right for both sides. It seems to be working out all right for the Padres, and he's dazzling folks in pinstripes. So see how it goes.
And he will do that for 1 year, and then he's going to go into free agency.
Go across town.
And we'll have to see. I'll go and I will make a statement right now. I will guarantee you that the same thing that happened to Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell and Matt Chapman, every major Scott Boras client, they are nothing compared to Juan Soto. when it comes to just a pure impact player that's out there.
Age
If
and
Juan
everything.
Soto is signed before the start of spring training, I will be utterly shocked. Utterly, absolutely beyond shocked, because they're going to ask for the moon and the stars and the sun and Neil deGrasse Tyson. And they're not going to get all that. Maybe they'll get Neil. They're not going to get everything. So they're going to leave him sitting there, and he's going to be very deep into spring training. If not into the season, he will not be signed next year.
What do you think about that? Kyle thinks he'll go back to the Nets. Wouldn't that be something? Playing just a whole bunch of former Padres playing together in Washington.
I see where you're going with that. Remember, he turned down, what was it, $440 million over 11 years from them?
Yeah.
It's now. Here's the thing. My guess is he didn't like that, not for the number, but for the duration, because he knows, Boris knows, he sees contracts going up every single year. It's the Shohei Ohtani effect, right? Yeah. He sees how much money is going to be out there. So if you sign for like what Manny and Toddy did, a decade and more, you are probably sacrificing money over the length of the contract. Because if you sign for 4 years and then you're signing again at the age of 29 or 30, it's what Mike Trout did. Sign a $150 million contract, then a $420 million contract, because you hit that next part of your prime. So that's, I think, what he's looking at when he said no to that. He was like, I am not sacrificing money. I'll be able to make, if I go to arbitration in a few years and then sign a 5-year deal and then a 10-year deal, I'm going to make a truckload more money than I would have had I just signed this 11-year contract and be here the rest of my career.
Yeah.
So anyway, Kyle, I could see it. It will have to be on a 5-year, $280 million deal.
50 plus 50. Yeah. Jeez.
Yep.
Well, this was a good idea by you, Derek. I'm glad we hopped on. Bonus episode.
Well, I never have those.
You have lots of those. And be with us Thursday, 1:00, Pitching Ninja. Rob Friedman scheduled to join us, and we look forward to seeing you then. Later, everybody.
See y'all.